Hey Jubes, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, before we get kicked into things, do you want to just talk about what you've brought onto the table here?
Sweet. So we'll start off with my shoes. So back in the day, I used to be a big shoe collector. Love my Jordans, love my Yeezys. I lined up for Yeezys, I think like 5 times in total.
I remember seeing you outside Area 51 back in the day.
Yeah, bro. Spending days out there waiting for shoes. Now this pair of shoes, I got them, and then as soon as I got them, I wrote Jubes Marshmallow on them. Everyone thought I was crazy, but the idea behind that is when I become super famous, and then if I ever go bankrupt, I'm going to be able to sell them. They're going to be worth, 50K, 100K. Yeah, a little bit of marketing and whatnot.
Love it, man. Well, I feel honoured to have the shoes on the Beyond the Surface podcast table. And for those who are just tuning in today and listening, there are two, one pair of nice Yeezys, and we've also got some treats, some marshmallows
some treats, yep,
up on there too. Hey, Jubes, for those who aren't aware of you, do you mind just introducing yourself and who you are?
Yeah, so my full name is James Elliott Matamua Lamb, but I also go by the name Jubes Marshmallow, which is a little bit of like a nickname or a stage name. I get up to, I do like boxing, acting, I used to do a bit of cooking, just like a real go-getter and a bit of an opportunist.
Awesome. Love it, bro. How did you get into, I guess growing up? So you're based out in the hut. What was the first sort of 6 or so years of your life looking like?
And you're like going back to like primary school and whatnot?
Yeah.
Sports was everything. Was always winning like cross country, or always doing really well, making like rep teams for sports and whatnot. All I ever cared about was sport. But I also came from a broken family. So pretty much, I think I was about 1 when my parents broke up. And then I didn't see my dad again until I was 4.5 or 5. So when he came back into my life. And then when I was 6, he got terminally ill. He was diagnosed with heart failure. So he had his first heart attack when I was 6. And then every 4 years, he would have another heart attack. So I also had that to juggle with while I was growing up. My dad getting sicker and sicker, and just knowing that he was going to die while he was still young and while I was still young. And then, that played a big part in everything as well. Like, I was never too keen to like go to school or do work. I just wanted to hang out with my dad and whatnot, because I just knew that I didn't have too much time left,
Yeah, time is precious. How did that sort of impact you, as a young fella, and having your old man who you look up to being quite sick?
I would actually say the biggest impact was it just taught me that, nothing in life's certain. Things in life don't always go your way. And then also for my dad, his mum, when he was 16, got cancer, and I think she was sick for only 6 months. And then he went the opposite way of me. So he just turned to like pretty much like alcohol. Turned into a big alcoholic from what I've been told, or just used alcohol as a coping mechanism. And then that's also a big reason why he got sick, apparently. And then he'd always tell my older brother and me, chase your dreams, don't follow in my footsteps. Because apparently he had like a lot of potential. He was really smart. But then after his mum died, I think he was year 11 or 5th form, and then he pretty much dropped out of school, and then just didn't do too much. Yeah, man. So then just from that I was like, okay, and from what he told me, don't follow in his footsteps, be a go-getter, get stuff done, because nothing's going to happen if you don't go out and do stuff.
Yeah, man. No, it's so true. And I think, the first sort of 6 to 10 years of our life is always probably the most transformational for us all. It's probably the most important few years when you've got role models and you're sort of paving out who you are as a young man, Then going through, I guess, high school and, with your family and stuff, what put you to the pathway of getting into cooking? Where did that passion come from, bro?
Yeah, so even as a little kid, like I'd always go camping with my grandparents, and from like 5, 6 years old, they'll get my brother and me to like help cook dinner, barbecue and whatnot. Yeah, and then I did the Magic Kitchen Showdown. That was all a bit of luck. The ad for it just came on this one morning. I woke up at like 5 or 6 a.m., which was really early for me. Turned on the TV straight away because I couldn't get back to sleep. And then the ad came on. Oh, do you like to cook? Are you the best chef in your school?
Hell yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I am. And then, yeah, signed up for the competition and did that. But then also, yeah, just cooking with the family and whatnot really made me want to be a chef. And then after doing the competition, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I actually have a passion for this. And then, yeah, I was lucky enough to meet Simon Galt. And then he pretty much gave me an apprenticeship or a job. I started working for him when I was 14. I mainly worked at Pravda Cafe, which is on Custom House Quay in the city.
They make good scones there too, by the way.
The best scones. I have the recipe if you want it.
Mate, please.
$20. Nah, but I'd also do a bit of work at like Shed 5, and I remember working at Crab Shack the first week it opened, and that was pretty surreal experience. But then, yeah, with Simon and everything, because my dad passed away when I was year 10. I was 14. When I actually met Simon, my dad took me to the mall because Simon was doing demonstrations at Westfield in the hut. And then Simon got people up from the crowd to try all his food. And he picked me out to try it all. And then the next year, Dad had passed away, and he came back to the mall. And then Mum took me down, and she was like, oh, you know, his dad's passed away, but you're pretty much his hero. And then Simon got me up to cook against him, and I beat him in the omelette challenge. And then he gave me his cell phone number, and he said, when you want a job, hit me up.
It's amazing. And he stayed true to that word.
Yeah, he stayed very true. So I held off for a few months, and I was even thinking, yeah, I might, when I finish school, I'll hit him up. But then for my speech in year 10, my speech was about wanting to be a chef. And then I said in the speech how I ended it with, oh yeah, I'm so keen on this. And Simon Galt gave me his number, so I'm going to be the best chef in the world. And then everyone in my class and my teacher was like, oh, why don't you ring him now? Or like, you know, this weekend or something. And then the school holidays were coming up. So I sent him a text message saying, oh, I'm keen to be a chef now or get some experience.
Cool.
And then, yeah, he sent me to Pravda. And then that was just doing 5 hours every Saturday. And then also doing some work throughout the school holidays, like maybe one Wednesday just for like 5 hours. And then for the first like 6 months, I didn't get paid at all or anything. It was all just experience and just keen, you know? Yeah.
Hungry for it. Well, it sounds like an awesome mentor and role model. Are you still into your cooking at all, bro?
Not so much. Like, yeah, Marmite on toast. Pretty good at cooking that. Yeah.
Can't beat it. So it's a staple in my household.
Because I worked for about 5 years in kitchens and then gave up. But I don't miss it too much. But then like how I'm going over to Australia, like Simon said that he's got hospo work over there for me if I want it. And then so that I've still got the option or the avenues and whatnot. But then everything with cooking as well, like when because I worked for Simon for 1 year, and then pretty much what happened was my mum was renting and my parents were always split. And then after Dad died, Mum just couldn't afford to like pay the bills and whatnot. And then so we pretty much got evicted from our place. And then my brother, my mum and me were sharing a bedroom at a family friend's house for about like 5 months. I was sharing the bed with Mum and my brother was on an airbed. I wasn't really going to school and whatnot. And then, yeah, just one day after service, I just said to my head chef, like, oh, no, actually, I don't want to do this anymore. And then it just really all came down to pretty much being like depressed about my situation at home and not going to school. And then left Simon. And then 2 years later, I was working at another place, but just had so much regret about leaving Pravda. And then I rang Simon up because I was still like depressed about everything and still wasn't going to school and whatnot. And then I thought by ringing Simon and going back to Pravda would like fix all my issues. But then I only lasted about like 4 months, and then everything became 10 times worse. And then the next year, my best mate, his dad had got a promotion to go work at Ridges Hotels in Port Macquarie. So he was managing 2 hotels. And so I went over there for a fresh start. And then second week, his dad dropped dead in front of us, had a heart attack.
In front of you guys?
Yeah, in front of us, yeah. And then, so it was crazy, you know, like going to Aussie for this fresh start, new kitchen, was really keen to get into it. And then after he died, I lasted about 2.5 months, and then was just so depressed and just thought the whole world was just against me. And, you know, after losing my dad to heart problems and then going to Aussie for the fresh start and then, yeah, seeing him die and whatnot.
I can't even imagine what that would be like to go through.
Yeah, man.
How did you stay sort of mentally resilient during those tough times?
Oh, yeah, I didn't, like, looking back at it, like, I didn't even know if I really did too much, you know, like, or how resilient I really was. I think I've always just tried to keep, like, the happy-go-lucky attitude, you know, like, everything's sweet, everything's cool. But then came back to New Zealand, and then second week back, then I had a car crash, spent an idiot with my mates, and then was in all this debt. And then, then that's when I started boxing. So I was like, I need some motivation. And how I was saying earlier, like, sports was my life as a little kid, really good at sport. At high school, kind of went bust. So I thought, no, you know, I believe in myself. I know I can compete at a top level if I put my mind to it. I need motivation. And then, yeah, pretty much boxing, saved me, pretty much, yeah.
When you first went into the boxing gym, were you going in there as a, you know, I'm going to do this to take my mind off things, or were you doing this as, I think I can actually go quite far in the sport?
No, it was definitely, I think I can go quite far. But then I was definitely one of those things, like, I was the only person that, like, believed in that, you know? Like, I had some friends who were boxing and who were really good at sport throughout high school and better and more dedicated to sports at high school. And then, they definitely would have looked at me like, you probably won't have too many fights or do too well. But yeah, I was going in there like, I want to go to the Olympics. I want to be world champ. I want to do something with this.
I want to talk about your mentality, bro, because I think, you know, in New Zealand, growing up in high school, we have this big culture around tall poppy syndrome. And when people have ambitious goals, you know, like what you're saying right there, I want to be a world champ, I want to be the best chef in the world. It's quite standard for people to pull you down if you're a big, ambitious, sort of high dreamer and goal setter. Where did your inner confidence sort of come from? Were you always like that, or did that stem from what your dad taught you?
No, I think I was always like that, but then also having my dad cement that into me, you know, like, you got to chase your dreams. You know, anything bad can happen at any time. But then also when I got to stream, because at primary and intermediate, I was like really good at sports, so people, you know, liked me because of that. Also was a nice kid, and then was pretty much famous at Ferguson for doing the Magic Kitchen Showdown. And then when I got to school, my brother had this big fight, and because of the fight, we weren't allowed to go, because I went to St. Pat's Silverstream, but we weren't allowed to go watch this rugby game or a traditional against Wellington College. And that was a big deal, because every year it switches schools. And then that year we were supposed to go watch it at Wellington College. So the whole school gets on the buses and they head to the school and they watch the game. And then, yeah, my brother had this fight after school, and about 500 kids from school went and watched it. And then because of that, we weren't allowed to go to the traditional. And then
they were huge back in the day.
Yeah,
I remember, you know, a big deal. It was like the biggest pay-per-view. If somebody was scrapping after school, everybody would get around it, chuck the phones out, World Star.
Yeah, pretty much.
Did your brother win?
Nah, he got wasted.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, but is what it is. But he fought a dude that was bigger than him and whatnot, but it was all just, you know, young and dumb. I think it all started because they were just talking trash on Xbox. But yeah, but then because of that, especially a lot of the seniors, like, yeah, everyone just gave me such a hard time. And I'd never dealt with that before, and I never really had people like be mean to me. And then like maybe looking back at it, it was just like high school banter. But then at the time, being like a young year 9, I definitely took a lot of it like to heart. And then I wanted to leave St. Pat's, but my granddad, he went to St. Pat's, and then he actually paid for my brother and me to like go there. And then so he was like, "Nah, you're not leaving. You have to stay." But then going into the next year, I didn't hang out with anyone my year level, and I hung out with the year below me. And then to do that at school, you know, most people will be like, "Oh, what a loser, hanging out with kids the year below." But yeah, it just made me, and it just gave me the attitude like, yeah, you just got to be degaff. You know, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. And then, you know, the people in my year and the years above didn't accept me because of what my brother did, but these guys, they're accepting me. So yeah, and then just that whole attitude became a thing, or my persona. Like, I didn't care what anyone thought about me. You know, my dad always taught me, who cares what people think. And then yeah, so for me, I've always had that attitude like, oh, I don't care, I'm just gonna give it my all. And you never know what people are going through or what stage they're in with life, you know, like, yeah, so, yeah, like I was good at high school, I was good at primary school, intermediate, not too good at high school, and now I'm booming again now.
Yeah, man.
And I'm sure people who saw me at primary and intermediate wouldn't be surprised at all, but then the people I went to high school with are probably thinking like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah,
like,
man.
how is he doing this? You know?
Yeah, no, totally. And look, high school, it's a crazy time just being a teenager in general, right? You got like crazy hormones getting pumped through you. There's the additional bloody pressures of social media and your social status and looking cool. There's all of these things kind of, I guess, add up together.
Yeah, bro.
And the sad thing is when you see people, you know, who might peak in high school, and their sort of, I guess, peak in terms of where they've been is, you know, being the jock or being the most popular guy at school. And then you see when they lose that sort of social connection to their peers and everybody's working, some of them, they can find it quite hard to catch that second wind.
Yeah, man.
Have you seen that at all?
Yeah, I've got a lot of friends right now who were just so boss throughout high school and whatnot, and then they're just struggling now or trying to like find their way. And they already feel like, because I went for a run this morning with a kid from my boxing gym, and he's only 18. And then I was saying to him how like, because he left school at the end of year 12 to start an apprenticeship, he's talking about like buying a house and all that kind of stuff. And I was just saying to him like, oh, you got to do it, like stick at it, like keep that mentality. And I was saying like, I've got mates, because I was young for my year, so my year level was like 23 and 24. But I've got mates who, when they were 18, how they thought they would be at 24, they're just not there, you know? And then they're just struggling or lack the motivation. And a lot
the motivation is a sucker, eh? And it's, I think it's the most depressing thing when you see a young person, or, you know, anybody at all really, who lacks that ambition or drive and motivation, or they just haven't found it in their life yet. And that's, you know, looking at you, bro, have you got these ambitious goals and stuff? I think a lot of people can learn from that.
Yeah, but I think it just all comes down to like just believing in yourself, and you know, I always tell myself like I'm not special. It all just comes down to like hard work, and I guess seeing through the bullshit, and not worrying about like ego and stigmas, and you know.
Did you deal with many people, even now you might experience this, but you know, when you set these ambitious goals and you put that out there where people might drag you down? Or have you found most people
I've kind of got
like
to this
supportive?
point where like, yeah, I just keep doing things and getting stuff done, so people are just like, oh yeah, sweet, I got no doubt, you know. But I think it's more about the people that kind of knew me but don't know me too well, or just people who knew me in high school and whatnot, you know, like when I was filming Savage, I'd be telling people who I hadn't seen a couple of years, oh yeah, I'm doing this movie, and they would all think, oh yeah, whatever, or you're just doing some like Vic Deal's movie.
Yeah.
And then the movie, you know, came out, and then they saw it and they're like, oh my God, I didn't realize it was
a real thing.
I was like, oh, I told you, you know. Yeah.
Can we speak about your journey into acting, and how did that come about? that pathway? When did you first audition? Because, you know, Savage is, mate, I saw that last year in an exceptional movie, and we'll touch on that soon. But how did you get into that acting pathway?
Yeah, it just all came down to right place, right time, and it was all because of boxing. So the director of Savage, he went about it in a way that he wasn't too keen on, or maybe I think it was mainly for my part in the first part with the kids. He wasn't too keen to actually get actors. He was looking for like real people.
The right fit.
So he came to the boxing gym, and this is a movie in itself, because I was at training and I was getting destroyed in sparring. And then I'd been boxing for maybe 1 year at this point. I hadn't had any fights. And then I just remember like my coach stopping the round and just saying like, what are you doing? You're just getting clipped. You're just getting hit for nothing. You know, change it up, you know, do some feints. Don't just like be a robot and just do the same thing. And then I kind of took it to heart. And then after sparring, I went outside and I was pretty much crying. I was trying to hold back the tears. I was doing like
Deep breaths.
Deep breaths, yeah. And I was thinking to myself, like, am I really cut out for this? Like, can I do this? And then I started thinking about, you know, like Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, Kobe, you know, they all talk about, oh, never give up. You know, I'm here because I never gave up. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can't give up. And then that night, Sam Cully, the director of Savage, walked into the gym. And he's like, oh, we're making this movie. And as soon as he said that, I just was like, oh, man, like, what's it about? He's like, oh, it's kind of like about gangs in the 60s. And then I'm like, oh, I like The Outsiders. And he's like, oh, you've seen The Outsiders? So I was just making like this rapport. And then he got us to fill out this form. And then about a week later, I got this email saying the audition's going to be on this day. And then the audition was about 2 weeks after that. And it happened at the boxing gym. And then I had this friend from Toi Whakaari, and I went and saw him, and because, you know, like, that's how I roll as well. If I want to do something and I've got friends who are already doing it, I'm going to go ask them for help or get them involved, you know? And then, so I went and spoke to him, and he taught me how to like memorize lines and cues and beats and all that type of stuff. And so I went in, and he's like, oh, you got to wear a costume. So I got like an 80s bomber jacket and whatnot. And then, yeah, I went all in. And there was only 4 of us from the gym who auditioned. One of them was my cousin, and another dude, one of my best mates. And then that was awesome as well, because we're all competitive, you know, being boxers, being athletes. And but yeah, I was the only one that rocked up in a costume. Like, I went hard. And then, yeah, so the audition was he brought in a girl. So the scene was like, I had this kid with this chick, but I was like a deadbeat dad, just a young dad. And then I just knock on the door, and I'm trying to like win her back, or saying like, right, take me back, let's go have some fun. And that's what the scene was about. So that scene wasn't even in Savage. And then, yeah, I did about like 20 takes. So every take he'd be like, oh yeah, you know, be a bit more charming, or, you know, I'll be a bit more like deceptive. And then that happened. And then about a month later there was a callback, and then did the callback. And then about a month after that, got the call saying that I got the role.
Did you take a video of that call, or shortly afterwards you telling your mum that you landed that leading role? I remember seeing that on your Instagram, bro. That was beautiful. Yeah, so I told her that, and then even she was in like disbelief, or didn't really like believe it, or didn't really like understand too much about how big of a deal it was. Yeah, bro. And then it was hard case as well, because I was actually supposed to have my first boxing fight on the Saturday, and then on the Thursday I got the call saying I got the role. And then they were like, I said, I've got this fight this weekend. And they were like, well, you know, will you get a black eye, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I could get a black eye or broken nose. Not me, like, be the other guy.
Oh, yeah, bro. But then, yeah, they said pretty much like, if you get a black eye, we'll probably have to fire you and you won't get the role. So then, yeah, boxing went on hold for about 6-7 months while I did Savage and whatnot.
Wow.
Yeah, bro. But then I was a go-getter as well. So the lady that emailed us about the audition, I didn't even know she was the producer. So right after the audition, I emailed saying like, oh, hey, like, how much longer till you tell me I got the main role? because I know I smashed the audition out of the park. It'd be silly not to cast me. Like, I'm the next big thing. Yeah, just being.
Where does that come from? Like, that's what I'm really fascinated about.
Oh, I think it just comes from like.
I think it's naturally just your.
It's just me.
That's you. That's you.
I definitely feel like you talk to anyone who's old, like, or successful, or like 40 plus, and they all talk about, people who are confident and who just aren't afraid, who just show up and are keen. So yeah, bro. But I even remember one time, like, hearing about like Justin Timberlake, because he started off on the Disney Channel, and then for his first audition, he was the only kid in the room that was like, talking, not sitting down, wasn't nervous. And then I also heard the same thing about like Julian Dennison. So when he had his first audition for his first film, which I think was just like a short film, and he was the same as me. The director of that just went to his primary school, but he was like the first kid to walk in who was like, yeah, I'm that guy.
Owns it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But as well, I think it's just a common sense thing, eh? Like, I saw how big of an opportunity it was and how life-changing it could be, or just even like just the glory of it, or, maybe I might never do another thing with acting, but at least I can say I did it. It's going to be a great chapter in my book when I have grandkids. It's a great story to tell them. Yeah, oh yeah, I was in this movie.
Yeah, man.
So
my name was Danny.
Yeah.
Did you feel any pressure? I'm just trying to take you to like your first day of filming for Savage. Obviously, not having any acting experience and acting alongside some pretty, well versed and experienced actors.
Yeah, nothing. Wasn't nervous at all. Yeah, bro. I just went in and rocked it. Like, the mentality was, I've got everything to gain and nothing to lose. And then also, because I've never acted before, there's not really like a what's the word? Like, if you go to drama school, people like expect you to do these great things and whatnot. Yeah, there was no pressure.
No expectations.
No expectations ever. Yeah, there was no expectations to be amazing. So, but then for me as well, like, you go to drama school and you learn a certain way, but to me, acting's all about, I think, like, listening, to like what the director wants, because he also wrote the film, so it's all about like pretty much whatever he wanted. Like, it's his vision, so whatever he was saying, I just gave it 100% and tried to like pull it off, And then, but it also came down to like, because he came to the boxing gym to find people who had been through struggles. He didn't want the actors, and he had talked about like Rocky, the film Rocky. He's boxing because he wants to be a world champ. He's got nothing, and then he kind of felt like that's why people just box. Like, that's why every boxer boxes, because he was saying to me like, why else do you want to get punched in the head? Why not go be a swimmer or be, play basketball or a team sport where you aren't getting like damage and stuff. But it worked out well as well, because apart from the boxing, losing my dad and seeing my mate's dad die, and I guess like being homeless with my mum and stuff, that all helped, because every time before we'd film a scene, and even in rehearsals, we'd go through every line, and the director would be like, oh, I want you to think about, this is a sad moment in the film. When you say this line, I want you to think about the moment, like when you first got told your dad had died. And then, so pretty much every time I say something, I'm thinking about something that had happened in my life, and using that to portray it on the screen. Yeah, man.
Beautiful. And with Savage, I think it probably started a pretty timely conversation, or just insight really into gangs in New Zealand as well. Did you guys have much involvement with the gang community when you were making it?
I didn't like, not me, but the director did, and like other people working on the film. He spent a lot of time like researching and being around gangs and going to like the pads and whatnot. And then because his kind of thing came from, he directed this play, and then the dude that was the main character, he got mistaken for this dude that stole a gang patch, and then this dude just stabbed him in the heart, killed him. So this dude had nothing to do with gangs, just from Porirua, just wrong place, wrong time. And then from that, the director really wanted to get into, telling these stories and telling like why gangs pretty much formed in New Zealand and why gangs exist. It's not just because people are just assholes and savages. It all comes from how they're brought up and what they're around.
Totally.
So,
yeah, it's so true. And I think the movie beautifully portrayed that, having the sort of 3 different points of Danny's life, from like a young boy to you as the sort of teenager. How old was that middle Danny? How old was he?
He was 16.
16, yeah. And then the adult. And you can see those big life moments which happened and how that influenced him to be who he was in the movie.
And it's crazy, like even, watching it and thinking about it, like pretty much all I had to do was go home. But the character was just thinking, like, no one wants me, or do I really want to risk going home and then really finding out that my family doesn't want me? And then, a lot of that stuff happens, and there's a lot of kids out there who go through that stuff, or maybe not to that extent, but are just scared to, like, when they're in trouble, to ask for help and get guidance, and yeah, man.
With the acting, where do you want to take this?
I do want to go like all the way. Like I'm really want to like
the next KJ Upper.
Yeah, like I want to be in the big films, but I don't really know if I want the fame. I'd love to be like Thomasin McKenzie. Like you never see what she gets up to. You just see like when she's at a film premiere or like on a talk show, but you don't see like paparazzi following her around. And then she does these awesome films too. Yeah, I definitely want to be more of like a Christian Bale or like Leonardo DiCaprio than like The Rock.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to get to the big leagues.
Yeah.
But as well, there's been so many like different variables and options and ways to do things. Like when I was filming Savage, I spoke to this agent up in Auckland, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll be keen to sign you, but you probably have to move up." But at the same time, I was keen to go study sports coaching down at Canterbury, and I said that to them, and so they're like, "Oh, no, we don't want to sign you if you go down to Christchurch." And then I didn't even end up going down to Christchurch, and then didn't keep in contact with them. Never told them that I didn't go. And then I was thinking, I'll go to Australia. So I had this meeting with Chris Hemsworth's agents, and then that I sorted that out through the guy that played the big me in Savage, because they also represent him. That's Jake Ryan. And then I was going to move to Sydney, and then COVID happened, and then so I moved to Auckland, and then even with that, I walked into Gail Cowan, didn't even tell her I was coming in, and I just walked in. She wasn't even there, and then the girls in there were like, "Oh, who are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm Jubes Matamua. I was in Savage. I want to sign with you guys." And they're like, "Oh, what the hell? Like, no one ever does this." And Gail wasn't even there, and then they just signed me anyway.
Far out.
And then moved up to Auckland this year to pursue that a bit more, but then COVID's just put it on hold. And then I really want to focus on boxing for the next few years, and then focus on acting when I'm older.
Yep.
I definitely think that I have to go do some like type of study for like people to actually like cast me and take me more seriously. Like I do have the credit of Savage, but yeah, pretty much my vibe that I've got is that if you haven't done like any study, then no good. So
and is that a study in the sort of creative space around acting, or does it just mean study in general?
Oh no, you're studying like acting. So you're going to like Toi Whakaari or going to pro actors or pro actors. There's a drama school in Auckland as well. But then also like I do classes and whatnot, but then I definitely think that they want me to go, study for a whole year or 2 years and just tick the boxes, So but the kind of like the game plan is I'm going to go to the UK, I'm going to box, I'm going to come back, I'm going to win nationals, I'm going to go to the world champs, then I'm going to go to Olympic qualifiers, qualify for the Olympics, go to the Olympics, get my gold medal, and then give up boxing, and then focus on acting.
So you got unfinished business in the boxing space at the moment.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to remember this conversation because you've also got the Olympic rings on your cap.
There we go. So I got this hat from Ryan Scaife, who's one of the best boxers in New Zealand.
Shout out Ryan.
He's a 11-time national champ, third generation boxer. Pretty much, I guess now I guess we'll start talking about boxing. His grandfather opened our gym and then took a team over to the States. They fought Ali's guys, and then Muhammad Ali returned the favor, came to New Zealand. And then Ryan's dad, when he was about 20, went over to the States and trained with Ali for about 6 months.
Wow.
Qualified for the 1980, I think it was Moscow Olympics, but then Russia. New Zealand boycotted, so they never went. And then his dad had also been offered an undercard fight at Madison Square Garden, but chose to go for the gold medal instead. And then decided that since the Olympics didn't happen, the pro boxing didn't happen, he'd just become the coach. And then he took over, and then, Ryan was born, and Ryan started boxing. And Ryan's the man. He's been to 2 Olympic qualifiers, hasn't qualified yet. But yeah, he got this hat in Jordan the start of last year, and I was like, oh, that's a cool hat. He's like, oh, do you want it? And I was like, oh, yeah, bro.
It's pretty
made me train hard,
It's
more motivation.
Yeah, I've actually follow Ryan on Instagram and on Strava, and man, that man can run some fast splits. Bro. It's ridiculous.
He's a beast.
Yeah.
But he's always been that kid, he always won inter-school cross-country. Like, running was like my main sport when I was at primary school, and he would always beat me. And he'd always say like, oh, I didn't even do running, I just do boxing. And then from about year 5, I asked my mum all the time, can I do boxing? I want to do boxing. But then she was always real iffy on the head stuff. And then so that's why I started when I was older, So I was keen to become the champion and was needing motivation. But then from Ryan always beating me, that's what wanted me to that's what made me want to go to the gym and give boxing a go. Because not only was it about the boxing, but it was also about being this fitness freak,
How long have you been boxing for now? Because you also picked up the Golden Gloves this year.
Yeah, this year, yeah.
Massive, bro.
Yeah, massive. So I started when I was 19, back in 2017, and then trained for a year, and then Savage happened. So then that put me out for a year. I could still do running and punch the bag and stuff, but just no sparring.
Yeah. Couldn't get that black eye, or else you might get dropped.
Yeah, might get dropped. Yeah, get fired. And then I had my first fight in April 2019, and then I turned 21 in April as well, and then I went and moved to Aussie for 5 months, trained there, and then since my dad died young, I got a little bit of inheritance, and I just spent it all on an American trip. So I just went to the States by myself just to go watch sport.
Awesome. Just
started in Boston, went and watched the Patriots, and then made my way across to the West Coast. And then pretty much had a few months off boxing because of that, and then came back. And then I had 6 fights last year. I think I won 4, or maybe I won 3, lost 3. My first 2 fights, I won them. And then my 3rd and 4th fight, I fought dudes that had 10 more fights than me. And
the experience.
Yeah, stepped it up. And because as well, your first 10 fights, you're supposed to do 2-minute rounds. And then for my 4th fight, I did, it's always 3 rounds for amateur boxing. And then, 10 fights in under 2 minutes. And then after that, you go to 3 minutes. And then for my 4th fight, I fought a dude that had 10 more fights and had 3-minute rounds, but lost that one. But it was still just about getting the experience and throwing yourself in the deep end, and especially starting the sport late, And then went to Golden Gloves that year as well. And then I had 2 fights on the first day. I won in the morning and then lost in the night. And then so didn't win the title. And then had a fight in November. And then, then had my first fight at Golden Gloves this year. And then, won that. It was just one fight. And then, got it done.
Unreal, mate.
Yeah, it's actually, it's unreal. And it's, because I was just in the novice category. So that's just for people who've had 10 and under fights. But already just winning that is changed the trajectory, how people look at me, and just, also in terms of sponsorship and stuff. just by having that title, you know, people are keen to like back me and believe in me so much more. Yeah, bro.
You need like a sponsor beyond the surface. We might be able to hook you up with some plugs.
Let's get it done. And then we'll go both ways, bro.
Yeah, mate. That sounds good. With boxing, what is the process, especially around like your first ever fight, you know, lacing up against another man? It's probably not something which all listeners could probably resonate to. I've definitely got a few mates who are in the sort of Muay Thai kickboxing space, and, you know, watching them perform under those bright lights, it's something like nothing else. What's it been like for your experience?
Yeah, I love it. In terms of like, I've never psyched myself out. I never get nervous. For me, it's like one of those things that like, I'm in there because I want to do it. You know, I don't think of it as like this crazy thing, like a lot of people do, you know, like everyone must think, oh, you must have huge balls or, you know, but yeah, I don't know. I just like love it. And in terms of getting ready for like your first kind of fight, it's just a lot of training, a lot of fitness and stuff, but everyone's different. Like I've trained with people who after a month they had their first fight, or even after 2 weeks, or some people were 6 months, or some people train for 2-3 years before finally getting in the ring. I don't know if before Savage I was supposed to have a fight, but at that point I'd been training for a year and 4 months. And then there was about like 5 or 6 fights that should have been my first fight, and stuff came up, or people fell through. Like this one fight, because I went and joined the territorials or the army reserves, and then the week that started, I also could have fought then, but then chose to go do the army thing, and that didn't last long because boxing and acting. And then like this one other fight, you need a boxing book to fight, and it's got like your medical and your record, and if you don't bring it to your fight, you can't fight. And so this one fight I weighed in, and then he didn't have his book.
Bummer.
So then we couldn't fight.
Damn.
Yeah, and then like a lot of like there's so many book issues and issues like that, or people will show up and they're overweight, and then it's pretty much like your coach's decision, and then they'll be like, nah, your guy's overweight, like what the hell, not worth it. Yeah.
Obviously in New Zealand, I think with the rise of the UFC as well, combat sports is definitely on the up. What do you think is accredited to all of, I guess, the popularity of the sport in the recent years?
Oh, I think it definitely just comes down to like people winning, and also the thing of the UFC, it's like it's new, it's fresh, you know. And boxing kind of has this stigma about you know, it's like corrupt and it's fixed, and there's so many fights where the guy who should have won didn't win, you know. And then with UFC, it's like it's pretty good in terms of
consistency around judges and stuff. Yeah.
And then also, I think the thing I like about it is that there's no like 8 count or anything, you know, like if you're done, like you're done, like they just stop it or ground and pound.
Yeah.
But there's also, I think with New Zealand, it's just like people doing well and people seeing that like you can get to the top, you know, like how many pro boxers over the last 30 years get to the top, or even like get more than one bout. Like Tristan Parker, he was up there, but he only had the one bout, I think the WBO. Like David Tour was up there like 20 years before that, you know. There's actually not a lot of guys that actually like get it done, and then I think that's a big part. But then I grew up and I'm really good mates with Navajo Sterling.
Yeah, bro, he's a beast.
He's a beast.
King of the ring.
Yeah, bro. So yeah, bro. Like just looking at him, because he's the same type of deal as me. Like at high school, he was a rugby player, or his primary and stuff, rugby, and then he was, in my eyes, like Nav will talk about and say like, oh, he wasn't that good, but Nav was always a phenomenal athlete.
Phenomenal athlete. You just look at how that man's built. He's like, built like a brick shit house.
He'll say that he wasn't, and that he was average at rugby and stuff, but no, he was a beast.
Yeah. He
was a beast. And then he was the man at basketball, but then he started pretty much kickboxing. He actually started and then did it and was like, oh, and then a little bit later, that's when he fully got into it. And then but yeah, like if he can do it, Why can't anyone else?
Totally.
He just got that killer mindset, you know?
Yeah, man. So where do you want to take boxing? Is it the Olympics is the end goal? Do you want to fully take a run with this and see where you get to?
No, pretty much the Olympics is the game plan at the moment. So, but the actual game plan is...
Let's set some goals right here so we can play this podcast in 10 years and watch it back.
So the actual plan is I'm going to Aussie in a couple of weeks. Just going to get some better money, or just more money, and then save up for the UK. So I'm going to the UK to box. And then I'm going to head there in April. And the plan is to have about 36 fights. And then I want to have 18 fights in England or in the UK, and then 18 fights in mainland Europe. So every 2 weeks for 18 months, just fight. So the first week of the month, fight in England. And then 2 weeks later, I'm flying to France. And then, you know, just for the weekend, go back to England, go work on some building site, get ready for my next England fight. And then 2 weeks after that, oh sweet, I'm flying to Hungary, flying to Russia, flying wherever I can fight. And then the plan is to come back, qualify for nationals, win nationals, do the Olympic stuff. Because what happens is that usually every 2 years there's world champs. So right now world champs just happened. New Zealand didn't go, but then in 2 years' time they're in Uzbekistan, and usually in terms of timing, they're always 2 weeks after the New Zealand Nationals. So then I'd go to them, and for world champs, it doesn't matter if you win or if you lose, but obviously you want to do good. So then New Zealand sport backs you a bit more, and then Olympic qualifiers are about like 2 or 3 months after that. Now, if you lose at Olympic qualifiers, you're pretty much done, no Olympics, and you need to, I don't know if it's you need to make the semi-final or make the final, but if you do one of those, you don't need to win the semi-final or the final, you just need to make it, and then you've qualified for the Olympics. But then if you win, you obviously get like a better seed at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Do that and then do the Olympics. But the game plan is that in the UK, find a gym that travels. But then I'd already been looking at like all the pro gyms and stuff, and because boxing in the UK is a bit different. Amateurs train in the morning, pros train at night. You don't like mingle.
Right.
But then like right now, about a month ago or a month and a half ago, I hit up England Boxing asking about like the best city to train in. Like London is just the mecca of the UK. You know, it's busy. There's more stuff to do there. So it's good for that. But then Birmingham is that's where Team GB trains. And then I just heard like Manchester is just a good area. And the cities around Manchester have good gyms. So like Billy Joe Saunders, his gym's like an hour train ride to the east or to the west. And then Tyson Fury's gym's an hour to the north on the train from Manchester. So I think the game plan is to go to Manchester and then just train or travel to those gyms and see what happens. See if Fury has an amateur team, try get involved in that. Because boxing is one of these sports, bro. The best thing about it is that it doesn't matter like who you are. You can just rock up. You know, like if the All Blacks are training and you play rugby, you can't just go train with the All Blacks.
Exactly.
But boxing gyms are like, you just show up and train. Like I could go to Tyson Fury's gym and I might never see Tyson Fury or the pros because I'm training with the amateurs. But as long as I'm doing work and like working my ass off and just training, that's all that matters. They're not going to be like, oh, who the fuck is this guy? Like
that's what's so amazing about combat sports, and you see that with City Kickboxing up in Auckland, or even the Combat Academy, I think it is, which is Dan Hooker's gym.
Jack is,
yeah. Shout out to Jack. What a savage that man is.
Jack McLean getting it done.
Totally. But you can see through that, you've got these professional UFC fighters who are literally on the mats with some of the amateur people just starting, and that's what I love about the culture of combat sports.
Yeah, bro. It's actually, it's awesome. Like even when I went to Melbourne, I just went to a gym that I heard that was like good, or messaged a coach, and straight away the coach was like, yeah, man, come through. Because it's all about as well, like they might have their guys there and they just might look at me like, oh, they might not actually want me to fight for them, but I can train there. But it's really like I'm giving their kids good sparring and stuff. So, stuff like that, you know. So
Totally,
that's why it works mean. And then when I went to London for Savage, for the London Film Festival, I went to a gym called Peacock's. When they're like, I think I trained there twice, 2 days in a row. And then even at that point, there was at the time, there's a thing called the WBC Super Series, and that's where like, because a lot of guys in boxing, they dodge each other, but this thing was like, all the champions and all the guys who are the number one contenders have to fight, and it was like
how it should be.
It was like an eight man tournament, and then so the final was happening, and this dude called Regis Progaris, I think that's how you say his name. He was fighting this dude called Josh Taylor. And then Josh Taylor right now he's the undisputed champ. And then Regis was training at Peacock's. So that was just surreal, like, go to the gym. And at that time he had the WBC bout. And then to go to the gym, see pros are there, and you know, you're allowed to be in there. You know, there's no media or people telling you like, oh, you can't be here, you know, piss off, you know, or you fanboy. Yeah, man.
Yeah, bro.
It was surreal, man.
It's pretty special. Hey, before we wrap things up, we've also got some sort of quick fire questions. So I'll fling them over to you, Jubes.
Sweet, bro.
What is the meaning of life?
Just live and love.
Live and love. Keep it simple. What does legacy mean to you?
Giving it 100% and no regrets.
Jake Paul or Tommy Fury?
That's the thing, because I'll be going to Fury's gym. So Fury all day. But that's actually idea is that I'm going to go to Fury's gym, and they're going to, because David Naika's there right now, and he knows I was in Savage. So he might be like, oh, this guy's an actor. And then we already know that it's going to be a draw, and there's going to be a rematch. Yeah. And by the time the rematch comes around, I'll be in the UK. So you're gonna see me on that undercard. Mark my words. I'm gonna get it done.
Love it. I can't wait to go back on this stuff. Tommy Fury, good pick. Favorite actor and why?
Me.
You?
Nah. Favorite actor. Probably Christian Bale.
Christian Bale?
Yeah, I just like his range, and I love most of his films.
Yeah, he's pretty good, eh? If you could change one thing in New Zealand, what would this be?
Ooh. Nah, can I think about that one?
Yep, we can come back to it.
Next question, please.
One thing you want the audience to take out of this episode?
Like, I'm not special. If I can do it, anyone can do it. You know, if you might have a low, but it's always up from there. You know?
Love it, bro. Nah, it's so
cliche, but yeah, bro.
It's legit though. It's legit. What do you believe is the main thing that is holding back young people in New Zealand?
Just like attitudes and I think it's just like ways of the past, you know? Yeah, bro.
Yep. Yeah. What advice do you have to somebody right now who might be struggling?
Just never give up. Come to Hiratonga Boxing Club and train with me. Man. Get some motivation.
Get some black eyes.
Yeah, bro.
And the one we were going back to, if you could change one thing in New Zealand, what would this be?
One thing
it's a tough one. Crystal ball sort of thinking here.
One thing in New Zealand.
Magic wand. Boom, everybody gets $500 when they turn 18. Nobody has to ever suffer.
No, probably that. I don't know. Do we need something?
Just say anything.
Just that. I guess more people did boxing.
Nice.
That's what we could change.
Yeah, bro. Love that.
More people did boxing.
Before we wrap up with a bit of a quote, where can people keep in touch with you and your mahi, Jubes?
Instagram. That's a good one.
What's your handle?
Jubes Marshmallow.
Man.
So if you search up Jubes Matamua on Instagram, it won't come up. Just strictly Jubes Marshmallow. But Facebook, James Matamua. Yeah, bro.
Awesome. Follow that. Cool. Hey, we'll wrap up with a quote. I thought it'd be quite fitting to have a quote by Muhammad Ali. Here we go. Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration, it's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing.
That's it.
Sure. Oh, bro. Thank you.
Appreciate it. No, thank you.